Okay, Waka, today we're going to journal page 29, factoring polynomials. Factoring polynomial steps. Step 1, find the greatest common factor GCF. Step 2, factor ax squared plus bx plus c. We're going to do that using reverse box method. And I'm going to explain this box method in the next example, okay? So if you would, update your notes. All right, now your notes are updated. Let's take a look at examples. All right, example 1. Journal page 29, factoring polynomials. Example 1, factoring the polynomials are identified as irreducible. If the polynomial is irreducible, enter NA. So the first thing we do is factor out the greatest common factor. In this case, we're going to factor out the x squared from each, okay? So that leaves 1x squared and that leaves 2x squared left plus 5x plus 3, okay? So our final answer is going to be 1x squared and then 2 parentheses, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to ignore the 1x squared. That's already factored out. Now we're going to look at the trinomial 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. So that goes here. 2x squared is here. And then 3 goes here. Okay? Now, we have to ask ourselves, what makes 2x squared? Well, the answer to that is 2x times 1x. Okay? So we know that this is 1x and this is 2x. Okay? Now we have to figure out what multiplies to give you 3. Well, we know 1 and 3, but the middle term has to equal 5x. So we're going to need to multiply 2 times this number and 1 times this number, and to get 5, and these two numbers need to multiply to give us 3. So we know the only combination is 1 and 3. Okay, so let's try to put a plus 1 right here, and let's put a plus 3 right here. Okay, so what we need to do is multiply 2 times 1. Well, actually, let me take a step back. We want to check to make sure that this equals 3. So 1 times 3 equals 3. That's what you first need to check, okay? So this is okay for this number, but now we need to multiply 2 times 1, add that to 1 times 3. Well, 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 times 3 is 5. That works, so this is our factor. So 1x plus 1 and 2x plus 3. Okay, and let's check. 2x times 1 is 2x. 3 times 1 is 3x. 2x combined to be 5x, so this is factored. Okay, so go ahead and finish up example 1. Okay, now let's take a look at example 2. Oh, wait. Let me take a step back. Almost forgot. I want to show you that if this is factored correctly, when you graph this and this, because they should be the same, they'll overlap. So let's do that now. So I'm going to go to desmos.com. I don't believe I need this screen anymore. So Desmos. So I'm going to graph 2x squared plus 5x cubed. Oh, well, I'm sorry, that should be a 4. 5x cubed plus 3x squared. Now, if we factored this correctly, okay, when we graph the factor, they should overlap. So now I'm going to graph 1x squared parentheses 1x plus 1 parentheses 2x plus 3. You see that they overlap? So that checks that this is in fact the correct factorization of this, okay? All right, so now let's go on to example 2. All right, Factor the polynomial or identify it as an irreducible. If the polynomial is irreducible, enter NA. Okay, so here we need to factor out the greatest common factor, which in this case is an x. We can factor out an x, which leaves, I'm going to factor out a 1x. 1x squared plus 1x minus 12. Okay. Now, we know we're done with the 1x. We're not going to do anything else with that. And we know that if we factor, we're going to have two parentheses. Okay. So now let's focus on factoring the 1x squared plus 1x minus 12. So we know first term, 1x squared, last term. Okay. Now we have to ask ourselves, what makes x squared? Well, we know 1x and 1x. Okay. Now, I believe when you put the answer in, you're not going to put the ones in front. You can, but I think when you put in HRW, they're just going to want this, x and x. Okay. Now we have to think about the combinations that make negative 12. Okay. So let's start with the first combination. We know that plus 1 and minus 12. Okay. So so we know that 1 times 1 plus 1 times negative 12. Oh, hold on. Keep jumping to this, but you always want to make sure that this works. 1 times negative 12 is negative 12. Okay? You always want to check to make sure that works first. Now let's do 1 times 1 plus 1 times negative 12. Well, that equals negative 11. But the middle term here needs to equal 1x. So this combination doesn't work. Okay? So now let's try plus 2 and negative 6. Okay? So we know that 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Okay? But now we need to multiply 1 times 2 plus 1 times negative 6. Well, that equals negative 4, not 1. So that combination doesn't work. Okay? So now let's try plus 3 times negative 4. Okay? Well, first off, we know that, draw this line down. We know that 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, so that's okay. So this times this gives us that. But now let's do 1 times 3 plus 1 times negative 4. Well, that equals negative 1. So we have the 1, but the sign's wrong. So that's simple. We just change this to a minus 3. So x minus 3 to x plus 4. Okay? So now we know that negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, so that works. Okay? Now let's do 1 times negative 3 plus 1 times 4. Well, that equals 1. So this combination works. Let's check. 1 times x times 3 is negative 3x. 4 times 1 is 4x. This combines to be 1x. So our factors are x times x minus 3 times x plus 4. Okay. Now let's use Desmos to check to make sure that when we graph this and this, they overlap. Okay. So get to Desmos. I'm going to exit this, exit this. All right. So x cubed plus x squared. Oh, I can squared minus 12x. All right. Now, if we factored correctly, when we graph x times x minus 3, parentheses, x plus 4, they'll overlap. You see they do, so that this is a correct factorization of this. Okay? All right, go ahead and finish up example 2. All right, now let's take a look at example 3. Okay? Factor the polynomial identified as irreducible. If the polynomial is irreducible, enter NA. So again, we're going to factor out the greatest common factor, which in this case is 1x, which leaves x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, now we know that we're going to leave the x and then we should have two parentheses. Just going to expand this line a little bit. All right. And the reason we know it's two parentheses is because x squared, two parentheses. Okay. All right. So first term, and we're done with the x. So now we're focusing on the x squared plus 2x minus 3. So first term is 1x squared and minus 3. Well, we have to ask ourselves, what makes x squared? Well, that's easy. 1x times 1x. So this is x and this is x. Okay. Now we need to figure out what combination makes negative 3. Well, we know that 1 and negative 3 is our only combination, but we know the middle term has to equal 2x. Since this number is positive, the bigger number should be positive. So let's try x plus 3 minus 1. Okay, well, we know that negative 1 times 3 is negative 3, so this makes that, so we're good there. But now we need to multiply, we put the 1 there. 1 times 3 plus 1 times negative 1. Well, that's 3 minus 1, which is 2. So this combination works. So let's check. 1x times 3 is 3x. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1x. These combine to be 2x. So our factors are x plus 3 and x minus 1. Okay? And let's check to make sure that when we graph this and this, they overlap. Okay? Let's get to Desmos. If I can get there. There we go. All right. So let's graph x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x. All right, now if we factor correctly, when we graph x times x plus 3, parentheses x minus 1, they'll overlap. You see that they do, so this is a correct factorization of this. Okay? All right, finish up example 3. All right, let's take a look at example 4. Factors of the polynomial or identify it as irreducible. If the polynomial is irreducible, enter NA. Okay? So first off, we're going to factor out an x from each term, which leaves x, 1x squared, plus 5x, plus 6. Now, we're done with the x. That's factored out. Now we know that two parentheses. Okay? So, first term, 1x squared. Last term is 6. Now, we know to make x squared, it's 1x and 1x. But now we need to find out what combination makes 6 and combines to be 5. So let's start with plus 1 and plus 6. Well, we know that 1 times 6 is 6. Okay? But now we need to multiply 1 times 1 plus 1 times 6. Well, that combined to be 7, but we're looking for it to combine to be 5x. So that didn't work. So now, let's try plus 2 times plus 3. Okay? So we know that 2 times 3 is 6. So we're good there. Now let's do 1 times 2 plus 1 times 3. Well, that's 5. So this works. So this is 1x times 2x is 2x. 3 times 1 is 3x. 3x and 2x combined to be 5x. So our factors are x times x plus 2 times x plus 3. Okay, and again, we're going to graph this and this to make sure that we factored correctly. Okay, so exit here. So then that's, let's graph x cubed plus 5x squared plus 6x. Okay, and then let's graph x parentheses x plus 2. And if we do this correctly, they'll overlap. X plus 3. They overlap, so this is the correct factorization of that. Okay, go and finish up example 4 and have a wonderful Wildcat day.